I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our combined Operation Freedom Briefing and Dave versus the MSM series. I hope you'll want to continue to join us for our outstanding content that we provide 24/7 at davejanda.com. On content I cannot discuss on any social media platform or, frankly, on my radio show that's been in existence now for over 14 years. We have listeners in all 50 states and over 100 countries of folks that download or stream the radio show every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. You can do it for free by going to davejanda.com, hitting the on air, on live button every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. Great guests, great analysis, but there are certain content and depth of content I cannot get into on the radio or on social media platforms, as I mentioned. And the reason is because there are ongoing deep state choke points. Things are much better, but still, they are still present that block content, that censor content, that suppress content on all those platforms. Now, on the radio, it's not at Wham. It's the only station in the country that allows whatever you want to discuss to be discussed. Every other station, not so much. The problem is at the FCC. And there are still deep state puppets ingrained in the FCC that would take Wham's license away, which is why davejanda.com is an uncensored platform where I can go into content to put you months, years down the curve ahead of the globalist cult. Now, many people are under the misconception that, well, the cult just walked away. They just handed over power and control and they're not going to do anything more. No, nothing could be further from the truth. That's exactly what they want you to believe, because that way they can take you by surprise. But the good news is now that, we're more than a couple weeks into this, the cult's on the run. And in fact, reality, facts, data have trumped, pun intended, trumped the cult. A couple days prior to an inauguration, Tom Woods, a political analyst, said the following: "The entire U.S. regime rests on a mountain of lies." That's what globalism is all about. That's what the globalist cult is all about. That's what the deep state is all about. The criminal international banking syndicate. A mountain of lies that contribute to its power and enrich its key players. The history of U.S. wars and foreign policy is a pile of lies that would embarrass a second grader. The track records of various federal agencies are distorted and lied about in order to justify ever higher budgets and ripping all of us off as taxpayers, right? As usual, the U.S. government accuses other entities and individuals of doing the very things that it does incessantly every day. It's Tom Woods. And he's right on target. And the bottom line is, as I have spoken to folks on the transition team now, the beachhead team now, the team running the show, I believe that we need to follow two parallel tracks. Out here in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, the zealots are saying, let's just move on. Let's just forget about, forget about criminal actions that destroyed our constitutional republic, that destroyed millions of people's lives. Walk away from that? No. And this isn't about retribution. This is about reinstituting a rule of law that is fair for, underline the word, everyone, and to hold, again, everyone accountable to the rule of law. So we need to follow two parallel tracks, and this is what when you hear this, you'll know where it emanated from. One track is never forget. Well, it's looking in the rear view mirror. No, that's holding people accountable. It's about bringing about transparency over actions that are occurring and have occurred, and to holding people accountable. It's not retribution. Because if we don't do the never forget part, we're going to relive the past, which has been onerous, not just for the past 4 years, but for decades, with a little brief interlude in there for a couple, 3, 4 years when under Trump 1.0. But there were still problems then, if you think back, right? And we need to follow a parallel track that's onward and upward. Again, transparency and moving forward with a freedom-based agenda. If we only do onward and upward, guess what? We're going to come downward in a couple years. Yeah. No. We want what we're building now to last not months, not years, but generations. And the only way we do that is by never forgetting and holding those accountable for present and past actions so that their future actions don't strip people, millions of people, of their freedom and liberty and lives and health. James Kunstler, another political analyst, recently wrote a great piece entitled "The Great Sorting Out Begins." Briefly, here's what he said. This, as they say, he wrote this the first week after the inauguration, is one of those weeks when decades happen. You realize that under the fiends fronted by Joe Biden, the U.S. government became a demon-driven machine for wrecking lives, perverting the law, and demolishing all scaffolds of decent behavior. And now, it all has to be fixed, cleaned up, fumigated, rectified, and rehabilitated. It sure does. Never forget, and onward and upward. Parallel tracks. And not tolerating the BS any longer. Too many people in this country tolerated the BS. You didn't, I didn't, but the vast majority of people we know tolerated it. Allowed it to continue to fester, the lies, the criminality, because, well, it would be politically incorrect to address it, to out it, to shine a light on it. You didn't do that. I surely didn't do that. And yes, we were targeted, we were censored, we were suppressed, still are to some degree. To a significant degree, actually. Let's be fair about this. But it was reality that trumped the cult. And it's because people like you and me had the courage to come forward and tell people what they needed to know, and it might not have been what they, it wasn't what they wanted to hear. And at first they gave us a stiff arm and pushed us away. But as time rolled on and facts were coming forward, albeit slowly, and it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the independent media, we wouldn't have gotten to this point. This point is significant, but they want us now. The cult wants us to go back to the couch. Okay, you won your election. Okay, your guy got inaugurated. Okay, your guy's doing executive orders. Now just go away and sit back. No, because if we sit back and we forget and we don't go onward and upward, no, things go back in reverse very quickly. But reality is what won the day for us and is winning the day and the days ahead as long as we keep their feet to the fire. Example, right before Biden crawled, whatever he did, out of the Oval Office, he bragged about how he, quote, handed over a stronger United States of America than when he took office. Steve Watson addressed this. Okay, so your record low approval rating is because of what? Not your policies, your wardrobe? Come on, man. Come on, man. Biden's always... Joe Biden has been completely eviscerated for claiming that the country is stronger now than when he took office 4 years ago. Il Demente had slurred at one point before stumbling out, "Since Kamala and I took office, our nation has become stronger at home and in the world. America today is more capable and prepared than we have been for a long time. While competitors are facing stiff headwinds, we have the wind at our back. This is what we're handing over." Wind at our back. He made that statement as winds were responsible for vast swatches of California incinerating that he was doing nothing about. Actually fomented, helped, along with Gavin Newsom, with their policies. As Watson points out, the country is literally on fire. There's no border. It costs $9 for some eggs. Hundreds of billions are being spent overseas while Americans whose homes have burned to the ground or destroyed in the Carolinas are being given $700, and it goes on and on. J.D. Vance noted Biden's leaving behind a dumpster fire. Yeah, that's being kind, actually. Political analyst wrote, "Biden, you opened the border, you armed the Taliban, you funded Iran, you laundered billions in Ukraine, you sold access to China, you decimated the economy, you crippled the country, you weaponized justice, you've put us on the verge of World War III. That is what you're handing over." But it's not just that. Let's go through, we've compiled some statistics about reality and how it ultimately led to the Trump of the cult. Just some 2024 statistics. Mike Snyder also pointed this out. Prior to the election, one survey found that 79% of Americans believed that the nation was on the wrong track. How did they come to that justification? How did they come to that conclusion? Because of you. Because you took the information we provided and you told people, wait a minute, here are the facts. Here's the data. I don't believe that. Well, go look it up. Well, they sometimes did, and when they did, gee, you're right. I didn't know that. I'm not getting that through what they consider the mainstream media. That's nothing more than the bought-off lamestream fake media, as I've told you for decades. More data. The U.S. government is currently over $36 trillion in debt and growing. More reality that led to the trumping of the cult. If our politicians keep spending money at the current rate, the U.S. government will be $51 trillion in debt in 4 years. Total U.S. household debt is nearing $18 trillion. The number of shoplifting incidents per year in the United States is up 93% compared to pre-pandemic levels. The U.S. Census Bureau says that 37% of Americans are having trouble even paying their most basic bills. According to the Bank of America, almost a third of all households spend more than 95% of their disposable income on necessities such as housing costs, groceries, and utility bills. The price of orange juice under Biden is up 327%. More data that trumped that puppet and the puppet Kamala and all the other puppets, globalist puppets, that ultimately trumped the cult. The average household in Miami spends $327 during a single trip to the grocery store. It now takes more than $100,000 a year for a typical U.S. household to live the American dream in all 50 states. And in 29 states, it takes more than $150,000 a year. For the average person, it now costs $4.4 million to live the American dream over the course of a lifetime. Thanks to rampant inflation, the average American now believes that it takes an income of $270,000 a year to be financially successful. Overall, U.S. home prices are up more than 1,000% since 1974. 37% of U.S. cardholders have already maxed out at least one of their credit cards. The amount of money that Americans owe on their credit cards is twice as large as the GDP of the 100 poorest nations on the entire planet combined. 30% of all student loan borrowers have, quote, gone without food or medicine due to their monthly bills, end quote, all related to their student loans. At one food bank in New Jersey, demand has actually quadrupled since the peak of the pandemic. An all-time record high of 770,000 people are homeless in the United States, and that number grew by 18% in just 1 year, which is also an all-time record high. We're being told that more than 3 million Americans are now living in their vehicles. The number of job openings in the United States has fallen by about 4 million since Biden took office. The U.S. retailers have announced 7,100 store closures just in 2024. For the 12 months ending June 30th, the number of business bankruptcy filings is up more than 40% compared to the previous 12 months. An office building in Manhattan that sold for $332 million in 2006 just sold for $8.5 million. Half of all workers in the United States make less than $43,222 a year. According to Bank of America, from 2019 to 2024, there was a 10% jump in those that are living paycheck to paycheck. The market capitalization of cryptocurrency Fartcoin is currently $973 million. Can you say vapor? Meanwhile, the market capitalization of Office Depot, that's been around for decades, is just $680 million. And the federal government has admitted that there are approximately 425,000 convicted criminals living in the U.S. illegally. Well, that number's coming down lower and lower every day, thanks to such folks as Donald Trump and Tom Homan and his entire group, working at Homeland Security and as border czar. You see, folks, those facts I just put out is what ultimately trumped the cult. Their BS didn't fly any longer. Why? Because people were living those statistics in your home and right next door to you and in every home in our country. They were being told one thing, and finally the breaking point happened where they said, you know what? This is what they're telling me, but it's not true. And it's not just me. It's everyone I know. Reality. Reality is what won the day. It's what trumped the cult. The way forward, as I told you, we need to push incessantly for 2 tracks. Never forget holding people accountable, demanding they be held accountable to your federal representatives, your state representatives, your local representatives. They need to all be held accountable. That's not revenge. It's accountability. There's a difference. And 2, onward and upward. Full transparency. Pushing for freedom-based agendas. Blocking discrimination. Giving everyone an equal opportunity to succeed or fail. Because it's actually out of those failures that sometimes we gain the most knowledge so that we can succeed in the future, right? The path forward is no longer a dark tunnel of totalitarianism, of globalism. No, we're right now and have just entered again the tunnel of freedom. But to make sure we don't backtrack into that tunnel of totalitarianism, we need to push for those two parallel tracks. We need to continue to push reality, facts, data. And we need to push the philosophy of onward and upward. But to do that, we don't sit on the couch. Moving onward and upward is based on action, positive action, that's focused on freedom and liberty for you, me, and every American, and every person of the world. I thank you for joining me today. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. Become a member of our freedom family, 30 cents a day. We have a tremendous amount of free public content at davejanda.com, but the real meat of the matter is on the premium service content and email service side of the equation. Join us. You can just sign up for a month. It renews every month. But why would you cancel after a month when you get the information that you're not going to get from any other source that puts you far ahead of the curve? Because the globalists are not done. They haven't run away. They're lurking. And we need to protect ourselves and advance our freedom-based, globalist-free agenda. I thank you for joining me today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.